I buried my husband, Obina, on a day the crows didn't stop circling above the churchyard. They weren't ordinary crows. These ones didn't make a sound. Just stared. And I swear, as the coffin was lowered into the red soil of our village in Enugu, the air turned cold enough to bite. People said I was in shock. That I wasn't thinking straight. That's what grief does, it plays with your mind, makes you see and feel things that aren't there. But what they didn't understand was that Obina didn't die like a man should. He died screaming, with his back arched, eyes rolled up, and blood trickling from his ears. And just before his body went limp, he whispered a name I had never heard before. Enugu. Even now, the way he said it haunts me. Like the name itself burned his mouth. Obina was a healthy, stubborn man. A civil engineer. Logical. Grounded. He didn't believe in ghosts, spirits, or the stories the elders told us around the fire. Until that final week. It started with dreams. He'd wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, his hands shaking. He said he kept dreaming of a man with no face who stood beneath the orgy tree, our village's secretary, mouthing words he couldn't understand. Obina would wake up muttering in his sleep, his voice deeper, foreign. I thought it was stress. Maybe work was too much. I told him to rest, to pray. But on the fourth night, I found him standing in our compound barefoot, eyes glazed, staring into the bush like something was calling him. That same night, he collapsed, and never woke up. But that wasn't the end. That was the beginning. Exactly 7 days after we buried him, I got a phone call. Midnight. The screen just said unknown. I picked up, and for 5 long seconds, there was nothing. Then, I heard a whisper, so faint, I nearly dropped the phone. Neoma, help me. It was Obina. My heart stopped. My throat dried. I wanted to scream, but the voice continued, desperate, breaking. They shouldn't have buried me. You must dig me up. I ended the call and threw the phone across the room. The next day, I went to the parish priest. I told him everything. He nodded quietly and asked me just one question. Did your husband ever mention the name Enugu? I froze. He led me to the back of the church, into the small archive room. He pulled out a weathered box filled with old documents and photographs. Then he showed me a picture. It was a group of villagers, old and faded. But my blood ran cold when I saw the man in the center. It was Obina. Or someone who looked exactly like him. He was called Enugu, the priest said. Lived in this village over 100 years ago. He was buried alive for practicing forbidden rituals, necromancy. The elders sealed his spirit beneath the sacred orgy tree. I told the priest Obina had dreamt of that tree. He crossed himself and whispered, then Enugu is trying to return, through your husband. I left the church shaken, but determined. I needed answers. That night, I returned to the orgy tree, with a lantern and a shovel. The air was heavy, like the night itself was holding its breath. I dug for hours. Until I hit wood. It wasn't Obina's coffin. It was older. Black, rotted, and bound in iron chains with cowries embedded into the wood. Something pulsed from within, like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the lantern blew out. I was not alone. A low growl rumbled behind me. I turned slowly, the dark pressing in like a weight on my chest. And there, standing just beyond the light of the moon, was a man. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin, smooth and stretched over bone. He lifted a finger and pointed at me. Enugu, I whispered. Then Obina's voice echoed again, not from my phone, but from the earth. Destroy it. Burn it, or I will never be free. I ran. I left the shovel, the box, everything. I ran like a mad woman through the bush until I reached the road. My feet were cut, my dress torn, but I didn't care. The next day, I returned with kerosene and a priest from Oka who specialized in spiritual warfare. We burned the box while the priest prayed. Screams erupted from the flames, not human ones. Something old and furious. The ground shook. The orgy tree split open with a loud crack, and from its hollow core, bones spilled out. Hundreds. We found out later that Enugu had killed dozens in his rituals. Villagers who were never accounted for. Their spirits had been trapped, just like Obina's. The next midnight, I got one last call. It was Obina. His voice was calm. Peaceful. I can rest now, Neoma. Thank you. I love you. Then silence. That was the last time I heard from him. But the scars remain. The land where the orgy tree stood is now bare. Nothing grows there. Not even weeds. Birds avoid it. And sometimes, when the wind is just right, you can still hear the low hum of voices chanting in a tongue no one remembers. The elders say evil never dies. It sleeps, waiting to be remembered. And in Igbo land, some names are never to be spoken aloud. Enugu is one of them.